Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There's little dispute that we're living in a climate crisis, and if serious action isn't agreed and embedded soon, we will reach a tipping point where it will be impossible to reverse global temperature rises. We know that those who suffer the most from lack of action on the environment will be those who are least well off, whether it's farmers of low-lying Bangladesh hit by flash floods or children in cities growing up breathing polluted air. The poorest are hit hardest by our lack of action. Madam Deputy Speaker, the children at Belmont Primary School in Chiswick I recently met at their amazing Climate Awareness Week are already urging their parents to switch energy providers to renewable sources and to use their cars less. But however much individual households change their habits, change needs to start from the top. To have any hope of achieving net zero by 2050, we need clear government targets now. Madam Deputy Speaker, no issue here is more totemic than that of transport. It's responsible for 27% of greenhouse gas emissions, yet the sector is the slowest in addressing emissions. Replacing all petrol and diesel vehicles with electric won't scratch the surface of the challenge. And how can we make a difference when it's far cheaper to fly 400 kilometres than to travel that distance by train? I'm disappointed there's no legislation addressed in the Queen's speech to cut transport emissions. Madam Deputy Speaker, if the government wants to take one simple step towards the carbon target of the UK, they can scrap the third runway proposal at Heathrow. This scheme means an additional 6 million tonnes of CO2, yet government figures show the net economic benefit of the scheme is zero. 70% of UK flights are made by just 15% of the population. Runway 3 isn't even being built to fulfil business needs, as international business travel is flatlining. Almost all the additional passengers at Heathrow after expansion will be UK-based people taking leisure flights abroad, and those are DfT figures. Yesterday, the government rejected the recommendation of the Committee on Climate Change, which had said that it should assess its airport capacity strategy in the context of net zero. But the government's response said that this should instead be addressed by the UN. Now, zero-emission planes won't come on stream until 2050 at the earliest, far too late to address aviation's disproportionate impact on UK emissions. But in other words, in terms of the UK's response, the government is not accepting responsibility for getting UK aviation emissions down to net zero. It says it may do so at a later date. This is deeply disappointing. Madam Deputy Speaker, cycling and walking can also make a significant contribution to cuts in air pollution and carbon emissions. People young and old regularly tell me they want to cycle more, but they feel unsafe doing so. This needs ring-fence capital funding for segregated cycle paths and safe crossings for those on foot or riding bicycles.